In the last episode of Sololeveling Ragnarok, the Apostle caused a dungeon break at an airport to test the strength of hunters, leading to countless civilian casualties. Just in time, Suho arrived to save the remaining survivors, where the Apostle witnessed him unleashing the terrifying power of the Shadow Monarch to summon shadow soldiers. As Suho was taking care of all the small monsters in the area, the boss monster appeared and proved too strong for him to handle alone. Thankfully, S-rank hunter Choi Jong-in stepped in, showing his incredible power. With one massive attack, he sent the boss flying into space, ending the disaster. After the incident, the Hunters Association decided to put a stop to Lee Minsung's plans by taking down the Payu Field Dungeon, the main base for making star powder, and catching him in the act. Chapter 34 begins with Lee Minsung sitting with the Apostle, showing surprise as he didn't expect him to grow up so much in such a short amount of time. He asks if everyone of his species grows up at this rate, and hears the Apostle saying that, in the past, he chose a smaller and younger form as it was favorable for his survival. But now that he had merged with the third fragment of Teal, he has no need to be constrained by his appearance, as he has recovered most of his powers and is capable of handling most threats on his own. Hearing that, Lee asks why he chose that name, Park Dojin, and what he was plotting by becoming a hunter and joining the Reaper Guild. The Apostle answers that he made the name simply because he wanted to blend in with the public. As for joining the Reaper Guild, it was because becoming a hunter looked favorable for his future endeavors. Lee informs him that, because of the commotion he caused at the airport, the Hunters Association is going after him under the justification of civilian casualties. If this keeps up, their major factory in Payu Field will get exposed by the Hunters Association. He asks if he has a plan to deal with this situation, as if they discover the factory and reveal it to the public, it will be over for both of them. The Apostle assures him not to worry, as one of the reasons he joined the Reaper Guild was to stop that from happening. He informs him that he plans on converting all the participating hunters in the party into his believers. Then, there would be no one left to discover or report about their factory. Lee tells him it was an excellent plan that would surely work and asks if he, in his current form, can take on an S-rank hunter like Lim Tae-gyu. The Apostle informs him that he remembers his promise, but after personally meeting with Lim, he can't say for certain that he would be able to take him on. Lee listens to him in silence for a bit, and a smirk forms on his face as he tells the Apostle that he doesn't care if both of them end up dead in that fight. He only cares that he keeps his promise. The story shifts back to the present, to the Hunter Association, and we see Wu thinking that the Payu Field subjugation should start at any moment now. He hopes that they get solid evidence from this subjugation about Lee Minsung and the star powder. He thinks about the hunters that were deployed in this raid and believes he shouldn't worry, considering that he has an A-rank hunter, Baek Miho, participating as a cooperator from the White Tiger Guild. There is also Choi Jong-in and another S-rank hunter on standby in case unforeseen circumstances occur. However, a new variable is the sudden appearance of the S-rank hunter, Park Dojin. He fears the situation might be in Lee Minsung's favor, especially since the Reaper Guild joined as soon as the Payu Field subjugation began. Looking at the documents on the table, he notices that Suho was also dispatched as a minor. He wonders if it's a coincidence or fate, as he was the one who permitted Suho to join as a minor, but he's still unsure if he made the right decision. If all of this was according to Suho's intention, then he has no choice but to help him. The story shifts to the dungeon, where some hunters are blocking a fire attack from lizard monsters residing in the caves of the dungeon. One of them informs the strike squad that they can't hold the line for much longer. Hearing that, a female hunter starts to approach the creatures to take them out. Seeing her moving so casually towards the creatures, the hunters are surprised, and in the next second, they see her delivering bone-crushing punches to the creature's face, launching it away into the distance. After that, she starts to attack the second lizard-like creature, but the thing was unexpectedly much more resilient than she anticipated. She notices its claw coming towards her from the back, and at the last second, she manages to dodge the attack. We see it was Hunter Baek Miho, who, using her agility, leaps onto the creature's back and, with a powerful leap, jumps away, stunning the monster momentarily and crashing into the ceiling of the cave. Seeing the opportunity, she leaps back at the creature with tremendous speed. The creature had no time to react as it saw her coming straight towards it to deliver the finishing blow, She smashes its skull in with a powerful punch. The force of the punch was so high that the lizard gets buried into the ground, and the ground underneath it crumbles as it slams against it. The place falls silent after the defeat of the creatures, and Hunter Beck Miho turns back towards the party and sees Lee at the back casually smoking. Seeing him not taking this seriously, she thinks that she expected this from him. He isn't participating in combat and comments, "What a waste of an A rank awakening," as she is lost in thought. Wondering if he thinks being an A rank is a joke, she fails to notice a lizard coming straight towards her to finish her off. By the time she notices, it is already too late, and she has no time to dodge. But before the creature can strike her down, Park Dojin appears and takes the thing out with one swift karate chop, making it look like a scene straight out of an action movie. He looks at the thing with disappointment, thinking how weak it was to be taken out with just one attack. After that, he starts to walk away, telling Beck Miho to be careful while she stares at him in astonishment. She thinks that she took him for just a greenhorn despite being an S rank since he was dressed casually during the subjugation, but he managed to take out that salamander with just one strike. After that, she sees him preparing to take out all the creatures in the area. Park Dojin moves like a flash of light, slicing through everything in his path. Within seconds, he eradicates the monsters and appears back in front of them. Beck Miho, seeing this display of power, thinks that S ranks really are on a whole other level compared to her ranks like them. After that, the hunters prepare to head deeper inside the dungeon, as all the monsters in that place were taken out. The hunters comment that they cleared this area faster than expected. Beck Miho comments that the magic beasts populating the Payu Field dungeon seemed low, to which Lee informs her that this was the case in every field-type dungeon under the ownership of the Reaper Guild, as they are being routinely managed by their hunters so they don't pose any threat to civilians at all. Hearing that, she thinks that she didn't expect the population to be controlled in this place, as normally there are no guilds that care that much about the number of magic beasts since there is no reason for them to enter the dungeons on a daily basis. She wonders if they are trying to hide something in here and hears Lee telling them to follow him, as he will lead them all to the boss room. As he is walking, he thinks to himself that no matter how much they search, they will never be able to catch the end of his tail, as the demons would have already dismantled the factory and hidden somewhere inside the dungeon, making it impossible for them to find any traces of the factory. Meanwhile, Park Dojin smirks, thinking that none of them will leave this place with their minds intact. The scene shifts to Demon Mormu, who was hiding in some other part of the dungeon. He was accompanied by 2 more demon-type magic beasts and was telling them, "This was truly a shame. To think I can't go and see the apostle despite his visit, and all the star powder I could have made during this time. It's such a shame to waste this time for the fuels to do their job." The scene shifts, and we see another individual looking around the dungeon. It was Suho, who was asking Baru if he was sure that he could sense the demons in this room, to which Baru tells him he was certain. So, Suho starts to open the door to the room. As he does that, he sees the demon-type magic beasts along with all the Mistburn, who were hiding from the hunters. Seeing him entering, Demon Mormu gets shocked and asks who it was, but before anyone could do anything, his face explodes out of nowhere. All of the creatures see Mormu, who was being punched by Suho, and he goes flying away into the distance, shocking the remaining demons who were with him. They turn to see the one responsible and see Suho, who was staring right at them. Seeing the speed and power behind Suho's attack, Baru tells him that his training with that damned crocodile was quite worth it. Suho looks at all the people and thinks that none of them were responding to anything, and realizes that this place was just as he thought. These demons were making star powder in the Payu Field. As he was in his thoughts, he hears a voice calling him the Black Mask and turns to see Demon Mormu, who was still alive and was telling him that he never thought that the one disrupting the great will of Iterum mentioned by the apostle would come to him on his own. With that, his whole body started to emanate a bright light, and his tentacles started to reach for the ceiling. Suho stood there, unfazed, looking at the thing while it changed its shape. The thing, after transforming, tells Suho that he will make a fine present for the apostle. The scene shifts to the mining team, mining for the essence stones. They complain that this place was filled with them and wonder how there could be so many inside a dungeon that is managed by a guild. They wonder if the guild was making a profit off of something else besides these stones. They say that this time, An E-rank hunter joined their team as a miner and wonder whose idea it was to allow an E-rank hunter to mine inside a dungeon that is B-rank. Another miner replies that he shouldn't be too harsh on the youngster, as it was nice seeing an earnest kid like him. Hearing that, the man comments that the newcomer was the only one assigned to the safest entrance of the dungeon and asks if that was his doing, to which the man tells him yes. The second man gets annoyed and tells him that he always assigned him to the front lines. He hears him saying that he saw 4 truckloads of essence stones there and suggests that they go help him out after they are done here. The story shifts back to Suho, who was preparing to take on the demonic beasts responsible for managing the factory. Baru shows concern and points out that this creature's mana is on a whole other level. Suho tells him that he can sense it too, thanks to his increased senses. He thinks that this creature has the same amount of mana that Randolph had, who was an A-rank hunter. He thinks that he heard about the Hunters Association ordering the Reaper Guild to clear out the field-type dungeon. So he applied as a miner because he thought there was a reason behind it and wonders if the association also figured out that the star powder was being made in this place. He thinks that if they start paying attention to Lee Minsung, it would get difficult for him to obtain information about the Apostle of Iterum from him. He asks the creature about the whereabouts of the Apostle. Hearing that, the creature thinks that just as the Apostle is after the Black Mask, it seems that the Black Mask is after the Apostle as well. Out of nowhere, he grabs onto Suho's leg, saying that he will see him soon as he will present him to the Apostle after he crushes all his bones. He tells Suho that as long as he is bound by his tentacles, he will not be able to escape from this overwhelming power. Hearing that, Suho asks what overwhelming power he was talking about. The story shifts to the past when Suho was training with Amit in the Shadow Dungeon. Seeing his physique, Amit tells him that he was impressed with his development, as he managed to pull off his training all by himself in just 5 days, and now his body looks much stronger compared to before. Hearing that, Suho gets happy, but the fatigue catches up to him, and he starts to feel dizzy and falls on the floor. All of them start to panic seeing him in this state. He opens up his stat window, and seeing his stats, he thinks that putting all the stat points he received from the daily quest reward into strength really paid off. He even got a skill that increases his strength. He hears Amit saying that he can guarantee that right now, he is the strongest human he has ever seen. Back in the present, Suho was ripping through Demon Mormu's tentacles like butter, shocking all the demons. Mormu asks how this was even possible and sees Suho holding chunks of his tentacles. He uses his newly acquired skill to boost his strength and zooms towards the demons like a flash of light. He takes out both of the henchmen with one strike and appears in front of Mormu, saying that he will ask this one more time. Getting next to his face, he asks once again, "Where is the Apostle of Iterum?" Seeing an opportunity, Demon Mormu launches an attack at Suho, asking if he thinks he will tell him the location of the Apostle just like that. Hearing his answer, Suho grabs onto his face and rips it right off the massive creature's body like it was nothing, after which he brings out his dagger and chops its enormous body into pieces. Meanwhile, Demon Mormu wonders what was going on. Looking at Suho, he thinks that this horrifying presence feels just like what he felt in the past from the darkness. He hears Suho saying that he'll just have to figure it out through a different mouth than his. He tosses him in the air and calls for Baru. While Demon Mormu, in his final moments, thinks about the Apostle, he feels that though it shames him that he won't be able to witness the scene he pictured, but thanks to him, he was able to eradicate the vile traitors of the demon race called the Redairu clan, which alone greatly satisfies him. As soon as Demon Mormu was taken out, the scene shifted to Essel in the Shadow Dungeon, who wonders what was going on, as for some reason, she feels like a weight has been lifted from her chest. Back to Suho and Beru. We see Beru enjoying the meal and commenting that this octopus has quite a great texture. He hears Suho asking if he can get the information regarding the Apostle of Iterum from him, to which Beru tells him that this demon seemed to have considered the Apostle of Iterum as a radiant figure, so he couldn't get detailed information from its memories. Hearing that, Suho thinks that this was problematic, as now he has no other choice but to get the information from the person in charge of the Star Powder Factory, Lee Minsung himself. But first, he needs to evacuate these people from this place. The scene shifts to Park Dojin, who had sensed something strange. He wonders what was going on as the demonic presence inside the dungeon disappeared. He wonders if it could be the work of the Hunters Association. Eventually, they arrive outside the boss room, and Baek Miho starts to think that she didn't find anything on the way here and wonders if the Payu field wasn't the place where star powder was being manufactured. Seeing her so tense, Lee thinks that she seemed confused as to why there's absolutely nothing inside this dungeon. So he changes his mind and tells the apostle to cancel the plan to mind control the hunters, believing it would be best for things to end without any incidents. Hearing that, the apostle thinks for a bit and tells Lee that doing that would be troublesome. Meanwhile, Baek Miho was wondering if the factory could be outside at the ground level and thinks it can't be helped. She just has to clear the boss and investigate again. Thinking that, she tells everyone that it was time to enter and starts to move, but something unexpected happens. Lee's expressions start to change. He asks the apostle what he was planning on doing and hears him saying that it was just as he told him before, that he would convert all the hunters in this party into believers. As for who he'll side with, it lies in their worth, as killing the S-rank Lim Tae-gyu to ally with an A-rank doesn't make sense in terms of worth. He gets close to his ear and tells Lee that he will use him as a means to get to him. Lee tries to hold himself together and asks if he really thinks that he'll be controlled by the likes of him, but as he looks around, he sees nothing but emptiness. He gets terrified as he looks up. In front of him was a massive sign of the teal, and he hears a voice saying, "As the absolute being wills." As soon as he hears those words, he snaps back to reality. Seeing him not resisting anymore, the apostle starts to approach him and puts his hand on his shoulder, realizing that he was now under his control. After which, he looks at the remaining hunters and thinks that now this was done, it was time to move on to the next target. The scene shifts outside the dungeon, and we see a car parked outside. Inside was a person with a bird made out of flame on his hand, telling someone that if this summon disappears, it'll be a signal that something happened to the party. It was Hunter Choi, who was telling the person that he solved the problem of machines malfunctioning inside the dungeons using a summon to notify them. He tells the man that he hopes they won't have to intervene in this matter. In front of him was Hunter Lim Tae-gyu, to whom Choi was saying that he hopes his vice guild master doesn't cause any more trouble and asks if he wasn't worried about him. Hearing that, Lim asks Choi if he was intentionally trying to irritate him right now. He asks if this was about the fact that the S-rank Hunter Park Dojin joined their Reaper Guild, to which Choi tells him it wasn't the reason, as they also have plenty of talented people in their guild. After which, Lim thinks about something for a bit and sighs. He tells Choi that he can't believe Minsung was the culprit behind the distribution of that unknown stimulant. As a guild master, he feels responsible for it. Hearing that, Choi tells him that if an unexpected situation arises, he hopes that he'll keep his promise to not step up until he neutralizes Lee. The story shifts back to the dungeon, and we see the hunters fighting against the dungeon boss. The creature was too powerful for them to take on, and seeing them struggling, Lee Minsung rushes towards the thing to take it out. Baek Miho was also taking on the creature and notices something. She turns back and sees Park Dojin just standing there, not helping with the fight at all. Seeing this, she wonders if this was his way of saying that the situation would easily end if an S-rank like him stepped up. She also notices that, for some reason, Lee Minsung has been diligently participating in the battle since they entered the boss room. Seeing them all fight, Park Dojin thinks that this confirms his suspicions. Though star powder is useless to hunters that are B rank and higher, star fragments, which are the condensed form of star powder, can turn even an A rank hunter into a believer. Meanwhile, Lee was slicing through the massive body of the creature with ease, and the thing screams in pain as its body gets covered in countless cuts from Lee's dagger. Seeing his power, Baek Miho was amazed and notices something about the creature. It was about to go berserk after being attacked like that, and in its rage, it attacks Minsung with jaw-dropping speed and manages to land a hit on him. But at the final second, Minsung had managed to save his body by using his sword as a shield to absorb the force of the attack. However, the force was so high that he gets pushed back a couple of feet. Seeing him struggling, Park Dojin thinks it is becoming difficult for Minsung to muster the power of an S-rank using only the stimulating effect of star fragments. Seeing this, he starts to use another ability of his, thinking that one of the 5 abilities of Teal, the shattered main form, is the blessing of Amplify. This ability can enhance the unique characteristics of his possessions, including the Mistburn's faith contained inside star powder. Whether the item is living or not, he can amplify its unique traits. He thinks that using this ability, he can amplify the unique characteristics of mana that Hunter Lee Minsung possesses, and can also amplify the ability of the weapon possessed by Lee known as Slash. Activating the ability, he tells Lee to show him if, after receiving this blessing, he can reach the S rank he desired so much. As soon as he was affected by the ability, Lee feels a sudden surge of energy in his body and sees the thing coming straight towards him. He prepares his weapon to take the creature out with one powerful attack, and as the creature gets in range, he pierces through its stomach with the holy light emanating from his whole body. The energy going through the thing's body rips out of the ceiling of the cave and reaches the outside world. Seeing this overwhelming display of strength, both S-rank hunters in the scene get stunned. While Baek Miho inside the dungeon wonders what was going on and how an A-rank hunter can possess such overwhelming mana. She sees Lee standing victorious next to the lifeless body of the boss monster and notices something strange about him. After taking care of the matter, he simply starts to leave without saying anything, while Park Dojin thinks that it's quite exhausting to cast Amplify on an A rank or higher. He thinks that Lee only reached S rank for a short moment, after which most of the power evaporated away, and he tells him that it was a shame as he isn't the vessel suitable enough to contain the power of an S rank. Hearing those words, something strange starts to happen to Lee Minsung. While the remaining hunters look at the destruction caused by Lee and think that an A rank couldn't unleash an attack like that, Baek Miho thinks that star powder is ineffective on high-ranking hunters and wonders if there is another stimulant besides it. But as she turns to look at both of them, she gets horrified to see that Lee had managed to pierce through Park Dojin's chest using his blade. Seeing this, the apostle was completely shocked and, in a stuttering voice, asks what was going on and hears a voice saying that he told him earlier. He can't be controlled by the likes of him. Lee tells him that he will make good use of this damned power that he has given him. Seeing the situation, all the hunters present in the room were stunned, wondering what was going on and how an A rank managed to take out an S rank hunter. Baek Miho asks how he could attack one of his fellow hunters and if he has gone mad after getting drugged up. Meanwhile, Lee was in his own thoughts and says that his life is over now. He thinks that he is constantly hearing voices and decides to leave this place as soon as possible. Since the Hunters Association has commissioned S-rank hunters outside this dungeon, if he gets caught, he won't be able to survive. Seeing him in this state, Baek Miho prepares everyone, instructing them to not let him get away. Lee tries to get his head together and shouts, telling all of them to move out of his way if they don't want to die. With lightning-fast speed, he runs through all of them. Before they could even see what was going on, all of them were attacked and pushed back. After recovering, they noticed that he had inflicted a lot of damage on them, making it impossible for them to chase after him. Seeing no other way, Baek Miho instructs the hunters to alert the S-ranks who were outside the dungeon. As she was doing that, she noticed someone behind her and turns to see Park Dojin getting back up on his feet. Getting up, he commented that he managed to acquire useful data from this, that a being with a large ego can resist the holy powers of the mist burn regardless of their mana. Seeing him back on his feet, Baek Miho asks how this was possible, as she saw him getting pierced through his heart. Without answering her question, he simply stared back at her with a smile on his face. The story shifts to Lee Minsung running away from the location while thinking that he has to run after obtaining the power of an S rank. He comments that this was so unfair. He thinks that he can't rely on anyone anymore, not even his own guild, and has to hide in a nearby city first. As he was doing that, he failed to realize that he was spotted by someone who had thrown their weapon straight towards him. Seeing the thing landing in front of him, Lee stops to see who it was and hears a voice saying that they were wondering what happened since there was a sudden explosion. He sees a man coming out of the shadows, telling him that he never thought he'd come outside of his own volition. The person says that he is going to tell him everything he knows about Star Powder and the Apostle of the Iterim. As the person comes out, he sees that it is our hero, Suho, the one Lee was looking for, the man with the black mask. Hearing everything, he wonders how this person could know about the existence of the Apostle. He remembers what he was told about the appearance of the person who took out Brokey and the Hyena Guild, that he was wearing a black mask, and wonders if this person could be that man. He prepares to take him out, as the only thing that matters right now is that he escapes from this place. If he wastes time here, the hunters will soon show up. He thinks that judging from his mana that he is sensing, he's nowhere near his current strength. Thinking this, He leaps towards Suho to finish him off, but to his shock, Suho simply grabs onto his blade before he was hit by it. Seeing this, Lee was stunned, wondering how this was possible. Not only did he block his attack, but his sword isn't coming off either. He wonders just what kind of strength this person possesses. As he was still thinking, he gets kicked under his chin by Suho and gets launched into the air. Looking back, he thinks that he can sense his mana, and it is much lower compared to his. So how is this happening? Meanwhile, Baru was thinking that it was certainly something astonishing since a hunter's rank is determined solely by their mana value. However, as someone who can detect only pure strength, he knows that Suho has been getting stronger based on his strength stat from the start. Now his powers have been enhanced thanks to Amit's training, which means that his physical ability is already beyond what an A rank could deal with. Back in the dungeon, Baek Miho asked Park Dojin how he was still standing after getting pierced through his heart with a sword. Park Dojin clutched onto the concentrated star powder and prepares to use it to turn everyone in the room into his puppets. But before he could do that, they hear a voice asking what was going on in here. Seeing who it was, Baek Miho starts to smile and says that they came right away. It was hunters Choi and Lim. Seeing them both there, Park Dojin wonders what 2S rank hunters were doing in this place. Choi jumps into the cave, telling them that they entered as soon as they heard the explosion, and asks what was up with this hole. Baek Miho informs him that this was Lee Minsung's doing, which surprises Choi. He asks how an A-rank hunter could be capable of such destructive power. She tells him that Lee emitted an enormous amount of mana, as if he had taken some kind of stimulant. Moreover, he attacked Hunter Park Dojin and fled due to the influence of the drug. Choi, looking at Park Dojin, gets surprised and asks how he was looking fine after getting injured, to which Park Dojin informs all of them that he happens to have a healing skill. Choi was impressed and praises him for possessing such a powerful healing skill, while Baek Miho tells them to stop wasting time as they need to go after Lee Minsung. Otherwise, he might hide in the city. Choi agrees with her and instructs everyone to go after him. Looking at everything, he says that Lee has made quite a mess, so he should keep his promise and eliminate him. But as he turns back, he sees that Hunter Lim was gone, and that shocked him. Meanwhile, Park Dojin was thinking that things were getting out of hand. He senses that the link connected with Lee Minsung hasn't completely disconnected yet and gets impressed by human desires, as they were truly fascinating. He sees everyone leaving and wonders if anyone would believe anything that would come out of Lee's mouth after his capture. He thinks, given the circumstances, he can't raise any unnecessary suspicions towards himself and starts to activate his ability to connect back to Lee's mind, thinking that he needs to dispose of him as soon as possible. Even though he will end up using a lot of his divine powers, he has no other choice but to take control of his body and commit suicide, as he can always get another A-rank hunter if he needs one. But as he does that, he sees that Lee was fighting someone, and as he looks closer, he sees Suho, who was trying to stop Lee. Seeing him there, Park Dojin was surprised and wonders what was going on. He wonders if he was after Lee Minsung just like the Hunters Association. He thinks that he didn't expect to meet him this soon. He thinks that after coming to this world, not a single thing went as he predicted, such as the existence of the S-rank hunters in this world, as well as Lee Minsung, who resisted the faith of the Mist Burn. Everything in this world was completely different from the ones where he could accomplish everything effortlessly, and he wonders why, despite everything going so wrong, he feels so excited about everything. Back in the fight, Suho and Lee were engaged in a brutal battle, where Suho was easily overpowering him with his brute strength. Seeing the situation, Lee thinks that he can't waste any more time on this brat. So, out of nowhere, he tells Suho to stop, surprising him. He asks, if he answers all his questions, will he let him go? Suho asks what he was talking about and reminds him that he is working with the Apostle of Iterum. Lee tells him he wasn't working with anyone after he was backstabbed by that apostle. Hearing that, Suho wonders if their relationship got sour and asks, if that's the case, why did he help him with the distribution of star powder? Lee tells him it was because he promised to kill the person he despised the most. Suho was shocked by that answer, and he asks if he really joined hands with the Iterum for something like that. Lee tells him that the life he had amassed completely changed after the cataclysm. Before the cataclysm, he was just a nobody. Then he started to look down on him after becoming an S rank. So in order for him to live as his true self, He needed someone to die and asks if he wasn't looking for that alien to take him out too. Suho tells him he wasn't thinking of doing that if he could have talked with him. Hearing that, Lee started to smirk and asks if he was really not planning on taking him out, even after knowing that thing came to invade the whole world. Lee started to emit a massive amount of mana, which shocked Suho as he told him that he was just like the most disgusting character he had to portray during his time as an actor. And with rage in his eyes, he tells Suho that it was an ambiguous character without an ego, who just makes choices within the frames dictated by society and others, all the while being good and moral. He tells him that he probably doesn't even know what he wants for himself. Lee's whole body was surging with mana as he told Suho that if he hadn't gained powers by sheer luck, he would have ended up as an extra as well. He tells him that there will soon come a time when he will have to make a decision swayed by the situation, and says that he will make that situation for him. He begins to tell him about the identity of the one he has to kill, but before he could do that, he finds himself back in the same dimension filled with light and sees himself trapped inside the hands of someone. Looking up, he sees the apostle telling him that he can't allow him to disclose more than that. He thanks Lee, as because of him, he gained a lot of knowledge about this world, and says that he was wrong for calling him incompetent. Lee looks at him in confusion as the apostle tells him that he will now take over his body. At that, Lee gets pissed and shouts, telling the apostle that he will never allow something like that. But before he could finish his sentence, he gets crushed inside his massive hands. The scene shifts back to the present, and we see Lee, whose body was giving out an immense amount of energy. The force was so intense that Suho was having difficulty standing straight in the area. So he asks Baru what was going on. Baru informs him that he can feel a much more powerful energy of the Iterim from that person compared to Broki's. Meanwhile, Lee's body was undergoing a change, and he was screaming in agony as his body changed its shape, with angelic wings coming out of his back. Slowly, things started to go back to normal after he was completely transformed. Looking at Suho, the entity calls out to him, and Suho wonders whose voice that was. As he looks at the source of the sound, he sees a completely different entity standing in front of him, who was saying that he never thought that he would attack the Star Powder Factory and also go after Lee Minsung like this. Also, both of them could meet. The entity told Suho that he too wanted to meet with him for a while now and calls him the saboteur with the black mask. And that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. See you again in the next episode. Until then, take care.